Part 60. Adorable Baby, The Miracle Doctor is So Awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 591. The procession circled around the entire capital, playing music and playing happily all the way. At dusk, the sedan chair walked back to the gate of Prince Chen's mansion at the auspicious time. The moment the sedan chair landed, Shen Yizi, who had been sitting there squinting for a long time, suddenly woke up. With the support of Xinjiang and Quiqui, Shen Yizi held the red silk and stepped up the steps, crossed the threshold, and came to the wedding hall. With her head covered with a wedding scarf, she couldn't see the surroundings except for the small area under her feet, but she clearly felt that something was wrong with the atmosphere in the wedding hall. "Here, why did you get a little puppy to replace King Chen in the marriage ceremony? I've only heard of using a big rooster. What do you mean by using a small dog? I'm afraid the people in the Prime Minister's office won't agree, right?" The people watching the ceremony on both sides were talking a lot, but because His Majesty the Emperor was sitting at the top, everyone only dared to whisper in low voices. The Emperor swept around majestically and signaled to the singing officer, "The auspicious time has come, let's begin." Actually, he didn't understand the operation of using a puppy to replace King Chen to attend the wedding ceremony, but since this was the Queen Mother's order, he, as a son, had no choice but to obey. "I just feel a little sorry for the daughter of the right Prime Minister's family. Ah no, from now on this will be my sister-in-law. That's all, let's find an opportunity to give more rewards later. It can be regarded as a slight compensation." The Emperor thought about it in his mind. Worship the heaven and the earth. 2 bows to the high hall. The husband and wife bow to each other and send them to the bridal chamber. Shen Yizi didn't feel that he had been wronged much about worshipping the heaven and earth with a puppy. Instead, he found it quite fun. Kui, on the other hand, almost cried because of her own girl's grievance. Although the imperial power is great, it cannot bully others like this. When the news gets out, outsiders still don't know what they will think about it. The bridal chamber was actually King Chen's bedroom. Due to his identity and current situation, the bridal chamber was naturally cancelled. Shen Yizi was also happy and relaxed. He took off his wedding veil, and then saw the bridal chamber sitting next to him solemnly. Coyotito. Snow slave. Shen Yizi was pleasantly surprised and picked up the little cutie and ravaged her. Xuanu struggled for a moment and let her go. Mua, after Shen Yizi was satisfied with his hand addiction, he kissed it loudly on the forehead and put it on the bed. "Sit down and don't run around. I will come to play with you after I change this clothes, son." When he got up, Shen Yizi glanced at King Chen, who was lying motionless on the bed. Well, his looks are really impressive. He can still maintain this level after lying in bed for 3 years. Before I was injured, I was absolutely beautiful and beautiful. No wonder he is so remembered by such a big girl and a young daughter-in-law. Shen Yizi had no objection to marrying the vegetative King Chen, and was even happy, especially after seeing that he had such an eye-catching appearance. She became even more happy. In addition to being happy, Shen Yizi couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. He was so good-looking, but he could only lie on the bed unconsciously. It was really a sin. But compared to King Chen having 3 wives and 4 concubines, she would rather have him lying on the bed like this, he. After taking off the bulky dress and the phoenix crown and hairpin on his head, Shen Yizi instantly felt much more relaxed. She picked up Xuanu again, sat down lazily on the Arhat couch by the window, and put 2 soft pillows behind her. Gently stroking Xuanu's soft fur with her fingers, she raised her voice and said to the door, Kui, I'm hungry. Let's get some food." Kui, who was waiting outside the curtain, responded immediately, and soon came in with a food box. A bowl of wontons in clear soup, a stack of cabbage hearts mixed with shredded tofu, a pickled carrot, and a piece of crispy fish. It's all what she likes to eat. Besides, Crispy fish takes a lot of time to prepare, so it seems that it has been prepared on the stove for it to be served so quickly. On the first day she got married, Shenyazi felt that the palace valued her as the new princess, which made her look forward to her future life as a salted fish. Ah no, princess. After eating, Shenyazi had a thin layer of sweat on his back, so he ordered someone to prepare hot water for a bath. She brought Xuenu with her. "Aren't you happy taking a bath with your sister?" Shenyazi tapped Xuenu's little nose. Xuenu struggled to escape from her clutches, but his small body and short legs were no match for hers. It was easily suppressed by her with just one finger. "Be good, I want to be a good baby who loves to be clean." Shenyazi put it into a gourd used to scoop water and floated the gourd on the water. For Xuenu, this gourd is just like a boat. Shenyazi took off his clothes and stepped into the bathtub. Xuenu shrank himself in the gourd and closed his eyes tightly. She poked it and found in surprise, "Xuenu, why did your hair turn pink?" Xuenu remained motionless, as if he were a dead dog. Shenyazi thought something had happened to it, so he quickly picked it up and called it anxiously, "Xuenu, Xuenu." Guzi opened his eyes tremblingly, and a piece of whiteness like snow broke into his eyes. The delicate fragrance from her body lingered on the tip of his nose, and he felt like he was suffocating. This woman is really not reserved at all. At this moment, King Chen, whose soul was trapped in the body of the little sleeved dog, thought so in his heart. "Are you stupid?" Shenyazi saw it staring at him blankly, and poured some water over its head. "Gozishan Wanghun, that's all, since you can't resist, let's enjoy it. Anyway, everyone is already married to him. Isn't it just being taken care of by the princess and taking a bath? He can do it." However, when Shenyazi turned him over and was about to wash his lower abdomen, he couldn't help it anymore. He kicked off his legs and escaped from her hands, and swam from one end of the bathtub to the other, vigilantly. "Stare at her. Is Xuenu shy?" Shenyazi caught it directly. "Ouch, woo." Xuenu called reluctantly, but to Shenyazi's ears, the sound was milky, soft, and tender, so cute that she grabbed its little feet and kissed them several times. Xuenu. When the bathing storm finally passed, Xuenu was already lying motionless in Shenyazi's hands. "Are you asleep?" Shenyazi gently placed his fingers on its belly, feeling the regular ups and downs, and his heart softened like a marshmallow. She asked Quickui to find a small basket and put soft quilts and cloth towels in it to use as its little nest. Putting the nest aside, she looked at it while wiping her hair. The moonlight shone in from the window, enveloped her body, was absorbed by the orbs in her body, and transformed into a cool spiritual power, flowing gently through her limbs. Shenyazi felt very comfortable and simply lay down. As a result, he lay down and fell asleep. Quickui came in and found that she was sleeping on the Arhat's couch, and she didn't dare to wake her up. The girl is very angry when she wakes up. He could only bring a quilt from the cabinet and cover her gently. After she left the room, Xuenu in the little basket opened her eyes. It climbed out of the basket and nestled into Shenyazi's arms. Shenyazi unconsciously put it into his arms, and Xuenu was suddenly suffocated into a piece of soft snow. The fragrance of her body is filled with every breath. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 592. Early the next morning, Shenyazi's new daughter-in-law entered the palace and went to pay her respects to the queen mother-in-law. The queen mother took her to have breakfast with her, talked for a long time, and her attitude was extremely friendly. When she left, she also gave her a lot of rewards, and gave her a clear jade plaque, saying, "Take it with this jade tablet, you can enter the palace at any time. It is given by the elders and cannot be declined." Shenyazi accepted it, feeling flattered. Then he went to the emperor and the empress, and each received a generous reward. When returning home, Shen Yizi thought to himself that this trip to the palace had added a lot of money to his treasury, and he felt very happy. After returning home, Shen Yizi immediately took Xuenu into his arms and kissed her. "Baby, did you miss me?" Xuenu looked at the flowery face so close to her, and somehow she got closer and licked her petal-like red lips. He was stunned after licking it. How could he do such a thing? This must not be him. It must have been influenced by this dog body. Shen Yizi was also stunned. He saw the little thing shyly crawling into her arms after kissing her. He felt so strange that he hugged it and rubbed it, and said with a smile, "It seems that the baby misses me too." After kissing the little cutie for a while, I asked her what she had eaten in the morning and how much she had eaten. Quickui answered accurately, "Xuenu ate a bowl of thick fish fillet porridge in the morning. I drank a small bowl of cheese and ate 2 pieces of crispy meat." "No wonder your belly is bulging." Shen Yizi touched Xuenu's belly and was a little worried. "It's so small, is it a bit too much to eat?" Quickui smiled and said, "I'm worried too, but eunuch Xiaochang said that Xuenu's appetite has always been good, and she eats like this in the past, so you don't have to worry, my lady." Eunuch Xiaochang was the chamberlain who used to serve Xuenu in the palace. Now that Xuenu came to the palace, he followed him and continued to be responsible for her food and daily life. Hearing this, Shen Yizi felt relieved. She placed the snow slave on the couch and placed the pillow on the edge to prevent it from falling. Tapped its pink and soft little nose, "Stay there and don't run around. I'm going to change my clothes and I'll be here with you right away." After taking off his makeup and putting on light clothes, Shen Yizi came out immediately. Xuenu was out of sight, and she was always worried that something would happen to it. "Baby, can we go out to bask in the sun? The weather is very good today, the sun is warm, and it will definitely be very comfortable to bask in the sun." Shen Yizi had people move a deck chair and put it on the porch, and he hugged Xuenu and lay down on it to perform photosynthesis. "Let's take a nap by the way. Since she just got married, she doesn't have much to do. Of course, even if something happens, she will try her best to arrange it. Life is to be enjoyed." When she closed her eyes, she felt as if she had forgotten something. What is it then? Shen Yizi thought about it for a long time but couldn't think of it. He simply gave up and fell into a sweet sleep. Xuenu sunk into her soft bosom and looked at her with complicated eyes. His princess, is she already married before she realizes it? From last night to now, apart from glancing at his body when I took off the hijab, I acted as if he didn't exist at all the rest of the time. He raised his paw and patted her. "Why is it so soft?" Realizing where he was shooting, the hair on the king's body spread to pink again. When I woke up, it was time for lunch. Shen Yizi lazily walked into the dining room with Xuenu in his arms. The black gold-plated 8 immortals table was already filled with all kinds of delicacies. Liuhe Crucian carp with meat, clear soup of shark's fin, ham and winter melon cup, braised lion's head, steamed anchovies, crystal meat, braised tendon, braised fish belly, fried spinach with shredded pork, fried wild rice with pickles. In addition to the main table, there were high tables and food tables next to it. She took a quick look and saw that there were probably no less than 30 dishes. The food standards at the Prime Minister's mansion were also very high, but they couldn't be compared with those of the royal family. Shen Yizi felt that he was having trouble choosing. From now on, I will live a life surrounded by delicious food every day. Shen Yizi hugged Xuenu and sat down at the top. 4 serving maids immediately arrived to serve her. Wherever her eyes went, the maid placed the dish on the small plate in front of her with nimble and neat movements, without making a single sound the whole time. "In front of you is a bowl of penglai rice. The rice grains are crystal clear and full, like pearls, with a clear and fragrant aroma. Comrade Shen Jiangan, the daughter slave, once made some for her to taste, and Shen Yizi fell in love with it after that time. It's a pity that Penglay rice is a special gift from the royal family, so even if her father is the prime minister, she can't get it easily. She took a chopstick and put it into her mouth. With a slight click of her teeth, the rice was chewed out with a hint of sweetness, like warm slurry melting in her mouth. This meal made Shenyazi very satisfied. After dinner, she took Xuenu for a walk and strolled around the colorful gardens of the palace to get familiar with the environment where she would live for a long time. After eating and drinking, it's time to take a nap. Shenyazi returned to the bedroom, walked around the screen and came to the bedside. When she saw the pale and handsome man lying on it, she suddenly remembered that she now had a husband. She should have taken him with her when she was basking in the sun. Shenyazi took off his outer clothes and hung them on the screen, climbed into bed, and placed Xuenu beside the pillow. Perhaps she had already slept enough after returning to the cage earlier, but now she was no longer sleepy, and her eyes unconsciously fell on King Chen. I don't know if this person will wake up. If he can't, it will be quite miserable to lie like this for the rest of his life. She looked at him and couldn't help it. She reached out and touched his face. At the moment of contact, sparks seemed to bloom in my heart, and an indescribable feeling spread throughout my body. Why did this person make her feel sour and sweet? Obviously they have never met each other before. Shenyazi stood up and looked at him up close, from his thick eyebrows, tightly closed eyes, eyelashes so curled that they could rest a pencil, to his straight bridge of nose, to his paleness that made people want to touch him to warm him. Lips. Wait a minute, why does she feel this strange emotion? When Shenyazi came back to his senses, he realized that he had almost kissed her, and he immediately blushed. Although Goosewitting was unconscious, she still felt that she had no face to face him for the time being. She hurriedly picked up Xuenu, who was looking at her brightly, and left the room as if running away. In the evening, Zhang Painian, who served King Chen personally, came to wipe him as usual. He first saluted Shenyazi, who was sitting on the couch outside, reading a notebook, and then led the people in. Shenyazi was immersed in the world of storybooks and had a weak reaction to Zhang Painian's brush with her husband. Xuenu, who was nestled in her arms, couldn't sit still. Now that he has a princess, how can he let Zhang Painian wipe his body again? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 593. Xuenu got out of Shenyazi's hand and waved to Xiao Chang, waved his claws. Xiao Chang immediately stepped forward and put his hands together to catch it as it jumped over. Xuenu pointed her little paw in the direction of the bed, and Xiao Chang held it and walked steadily over. Beside the bed, Zhang Painian was about to wipe himself for King Chen, when he saw Xiao Chang coming in with Xuenu in his hands, doubts in his eyes. Xuenu patted Xiao Chang's palm, and then made a motion towards Zhang Painian to rush out. Zhang Painian holding a hot handkerchief. What does it mean? The considerate Xiao Chang translated for him, Xuenu won't let you wipe your body for the prince. Xuenu glanced at Xiao Chang with satisfaction. You won't let me wipe my body for the prince? Then who will? Zhang Painian was confused. However, Xuenu had two great backers, the Queen Mother and the Emperor, behind him. Now he was also the favored wife of the princess, and her status was much higher than him. He had to listen to what she said. Outside, Shenyazi's eyes were fixed on the page of the book, and he followed his inertia to stroke the dog on his knees, but his touch came up empty. Where is Xuenu? Just at this moment, Xuenu's cry came from inside. Shenyazi breathed a sigh of relief, got off the couch and walked in. Turning around the screen, she noticed something was wrong in the atmosphere. What happened? Zhang Painian bowed to her and said in a very aggrieved manner, my dear, Xuanu won't let me wipe my body with the prince. His eyes clearly said, Madam, please take care of your dog. Shen Yizi easily read the sentence from his eyes. Baby, let's go aside and play. Don't disturb eunuch Zhang while he is wiping himself with the prince. She walked over to hug Xuanu, but he took a step back, called to her, and pointed to King Chen on the bed. Shen Yizi. Xiao Chang once again acted as the translator. Xuanu wants you to come and wipe your body for the prince. Xuanu glanced at him appreciatively. This little chamberlain was really smart. Shen Yizi and Zhang Panian looked at each other in surprise. Realizing that he was looking directly at the princess's face, Zhang Panian hurriedly lowered his head. Shen Yizi brought Xuanu over, squeezed its little paws and asked, Baby, do you want me to wipe the prince's body? Don't nod your head. Nodding is making things difficult for me, fat tiger. However, Xuanu still clicked the melon seeds on its cute little head, and stared at her with its two black and moist eyes, which seemed to contain 1,000 words. Has this become a spirit? It's so spiritual. Xuanu glanced at Zhang Panian. At this moment, Zhang Panian felt like he was enlightened. He immediately knelt down and said, I am really confused. Now that the Empress has married the prince, it is the Empress who should do this. I am a rude person. How can a lady with thick hands and feet be careful and considerate? As he spoke, he raised his hands above his head and offered the veil. Shen Yizi. No, I'm not at all attentive. I really can't do this kind of thing like wiping a man. However, Zhang Panian has already said this. If she doesn't respond, and the news reaches the palace, she, the Princess Kongzi, will be in disgrace. Well, eunuch Zhang is right, leave these matters to me from now on, Shen Yizi said calmly. In my previous life, I had been mixed up in society, so I still had this awareness. Shen Yizi waved his hand and sent everyone in the room out. It's better not to let people watch when you're wiping yourself for King Chen. It's too shameful. She put Shue's slave aside and stroked it from head to tail a few times. Baby, you will really find work for me. Xuanu licked her fingers and let out a coquettish hum from her nose. Licking dogs and other things, you get used to it in front of others. Shen Yizi rolled up his sleeves, stretched out his trembling hand towards King Chen who was lying on the bed, and unbuttoned his clothes. He was wearing a snow-white coat with a slanted front and a belt around his waist. I don't know how Zhang Panian tied the knot before. She didn't untie it for a long time, but it became tighter and tighter. Forget it, just take the scissors and make a cut. The lapel of his clothes was open, and a large area of King Chen's chest was exposed in front of her, which was so white that it was dazzling. Having broad shoulders and a narrow waist, and a thin layer of muscle outline on his abdomen, he must have been in good shape before he fell into coma. Shen Yizi coughed lightly, put away his random thoughts, soaked the handkerchief in hot water, wrung it out and wiped it with him. After wiping the front, wipe the back, after wiping the top, wipe the bottom. Why do you feel so evil for some reason? Shen Yizi patted his hot cheeks and tried to imagine the person in front of him as a dog, constantly giving hints to himself, this is a dog, this is a dog. I muttered it accidentally. Xuanu next to him. Zhenkua Gongfu. The duke's wife stepped into Mi Yang's courtyard with a sad look on her face. When she saw the untouched food on the table, she couldn't help but sigh deeply. She walked into the inner room and saw her daughter lying on the bed. She walked over and said, Zuer, you are really tearing out my mother's heart. Mi Yang has been on hunger strike for 2 days. The purpose is naturally to enter Prince Chen's mansion. When she first brought it up, the Duke of Zhen and his wife were angry and distressed. Why was their daughter so obsessed with King Chen? King Chen is now a disabled person. He has been lying in bed for 3 years and has not woken up. It is very likely that he will not wake up in the future. He may just sleep to death in a short time. In such a situation, What good can be gained by marrying off a daughter? The right prime minister has not shown a smile these days since his daughter got married. He sighs every day. He does not want to end up in the same situation as the right prime minister. However, this time Mi Yang made up her mind to enter Prince Chen's mansion. Shen Yizi didn't show up before, so she slacked off. After living in this home for more than 10 years and being pampered by her family, she was reluctant to leave. She thought that Goose Whitting was there and there would always be a chance to attack. As a result, Shen Yizi was given a marriage to Goose Whitting, and her mother was also looking after the marriage for her. If this continues, she will completely miss Goose Whitting. So she could only resort to hunger strike, a method she despised very much. She knows how much her parents love her, and as long as she persists, they will definitely fulfill her wish. It turns out she was right. Parents can never be cruel to their children. The Duke of Zhenqiu went into the palace, and after coming out, he came to Mi Yang and stroked her hair. Zuer, you, alas. That heavy sigh made Mi Yang's heart twitch. Knowing that it was all fake and just an illusion, everyone and everything around her could not be more real. After more than 10 years, she could not help but become emotionally involved. It can only be said that the reincarnation disc is indeed a reincarnation disc. Even she, who knows everything, can't help but get involved, let alone Goose Whitting and Shen Yizi, whose memories have been sealed. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 594. To them, everything they experience in the cycle of reincarnation is nothing more than one real-life episode after another. I have asked for your Majesty's will. Zuer, you will get your wish soon. In the future, when you enter Prince Chen's mansion, you can't be so willful again. The Duke of Zhenqiu stroked Mi Yang's hair and said. Mi Yang turned around and hugged him. Dad, thank you. Prince Chen's mansion. Shen Yizi was massaging Goose Whitting. During the massage, he was trying to put the spiritual power transformed from the orb into his body. She didn't know if this would help his condition, but spiritual power was never harmful to the body. Wasn't she a living example? With the nourishment of spiritual power, her body is in great shape. I believe that with the nourishment of spiritual power, Goose Whitting's situation should be improved even if he doesn't wake up. While she was massaging, Xuanu lay obediently on the side and watched without blinking. At this moment, Quiqui came in with an angry look on her face. Mother, did you know that the third girl from the Zhenqiu Duke's mansion has been given the title of King Chen's side concubine? Shen Yizi's men paused and asked, the third girl from Zhenqiu Duke's mansion. A figure suddenly appeared in my mind. She looked at Goose Whitting in front of her and clicked her tongue in her heart. He was really blessed. He was lying in bed in a vegetative state, and there was a girl who was obsessed with him and tried every means to be his woman. Seeing that her reaction was dull, Quiqui felt a little resentful. My dear, are you not worried at all? Shen Yizi was surprised. What do I have to worry about? Quiqui was stunned for a moment, then realized, yes, the prince was lying on the bed and couldn't do anything, so what if the third girl from the Zhenqiu palace came in? She immediately relaxed when she thought about this. Both the master and the servant were calm about the fact that Prince Chen's palace was about to have a concubine, but Xuanu couldn't accept it. She clapped her paws in annoyance. What's going on, brother? Even knowing that he has a princess, he actually gave him a woman. And Shen Yizi's indifferent attitude made him feel even more uncomfortable. Wasn't this woman not afraid that he would be snatched away by another woman? Half a month later, Mi Yang, dressed in a rose-red wedding dress, was carried into Prince Chen's mansion. As a concubine, she cannot wear red, but Mi Yang doesn't care about these details. Due to Goose Whitting's special situation, after Mi Yang was sent to the new house, she couldn't wait for him to take off her hijab, so she took off her hijab on her own, cleaned up and came to the main courtyard. Shen Yizi was sitting on the couch, petting the dog and flipping through a storybook. Quikyui was sitting on the embroidery stool, peeling pine nuts for her. Don't live this little life too leisurely. When the maid came in to report that concubine Xiao was here, Shen Yizi was surprised and stunned. He didn't expect Xiao Lizu to be so affectionate for Gu Switing. After entering the house, he couldn't wait all night and was in a hurry to see her. Shen Yizi had no reason to keep people out, so he waved his hand happily, let her come in. After Mi Yang came in, she glanced around the room and walked directly towards the bed. Quikyui stopped peeling the pine nuts, and quickly stepped forward to stop Mi Yang. The concubine is so arrogant, and she didn't even bow to our empress when she came. Originally, Quikyui had already taken a dim view of Mi Yang's entry into the house. After all, the real owner couldn't do anything while lying on the bed. So what if more women came? However, after seeing that Mi Yang didn't take Shen Yizi seriously at all, she couldn't help it anymore. In my heart, I have already labeled Mi Yang as ignoring the rules and disrespecting the princess. Have Mi Yang ever taken Shen Yizi seriously? Let alone in this virtual world of reincarnation, even outside, she never regarded Shen Yizi as an opponent. Let alone a little maid beside Shen Yizi. But she cannot care about anyone, but she cannot ignore Gu Switing. He has a clear perception of the outside world. She didn't mind pretending in front of him. He immediately turned around and showed an apologetic smile to Shen Yizi. I'm just too anxious to see the prince. I hope the princess won't be offended. Shen Yizi looked at her strangely. Her attitude was not like this last time. Why was she willing to be humble to her now? After thinking about it, she suddenly realized that now she was the princess and the main wife, while Xiao Lizu was the concubine, lower than her. It's okay, you go see the prince, Shen Yizi said casually, his eyes falling on the storybook again. Xuanu, who had been nestling in her arms, raised his head warily and called out to Xiao Chang, who was standing aside. Xiao Chang immediately came over and caught it. Mi Yang felt happy when she saw Shen Yizi's indifferent attitude. She sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at the man lying quietly on the bed, her eyes gleaming. She stretched out her hand towards Gu Switing, wanting to touch his face. Before they even touched it, Xuanu screamed fiercely. He was small in stature, but his voice was like thunder. Mi Yang was so frightened that she suddenly retracted her hand. Shen Yizi also shook his hand and smashed his notebook on the ground. Everyone in the room focused their attention on the snow slave that Xiao Chang was holding in his hand. Xuanu patted her paws on Xiao Chang's hand. Xiao Chang understood and put it on the bed. Xuanu climbed on top of Gu Switing, squatted on his chest, and yelled at Mi Yang again, not to make her rejection too obvious. Mi Yang looked at it with murderous intent in her eyes. Shen Yizi was not feeling well, but her dog became anxious for her. Gu Switing, whose soul was trapped in Xuanu's body, immediately felt her murderous intention and became increasingly wary of her. This woman is not a good bird at first glance. After trying all his best to enter Prince Chen's mansion, he might be trying to do something to his body, but he must not let her get close to him. Xuanu growled, as if Mi Yang would pounce on her and bite her if she got closer. Mi Yang frowned and looked at Shen Yizi. Princess, can someone please carry this dog down? Shen Yizi walked over and stretched out his hand towards Xuanu. Facing it, Xuanu became soft and cute in a second, and took the initiative to jump into her hand. Shen Yizi stroked its fur, thoughtfully. Xuanu has always been well behaved, but today she was suddenly so wary of Xiao Lizu. There must be some reason. And a dog's perception is much sharper than that of a human being. Could it be that it sensed something that prevented Xiao Lizu from getting close to Gu Switing? Thinking of this, the look in her eyes when she looked at Mi Yang changed. Concubine Xiao just got married today, so she must be tired. I think you should go back and rest first, and then come see the prince tomorrow. How about that? Mi Yang secretly resented that her good deeds would be ruined by a dog. She reluctantly looked away from Goosewitting. Well, I'll see the prince again tomorrow. After leaving the main courtyard, Mi Yang's expression darkened. Shen Yizi doesn't have any feelings for Goosewitting, who is in a coma, so she can take advantage of it. But that dog, for some reason, was so hostile to her and wouldn't allow her to get close to Goosewitting. In this case, she could only find a way to get rid of this troublesome dog. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 595. On the way back, she was passing through a bamboo forest. Mi Yang suddenly heard a subtle hissing sound. Her heart moved, and she asked the maid behind her to stand where she was before walking into the bamboo forest. When she came out again, she already had a living bamboo leaf in her sleeve. Mi Yang came over early the next morning, but unfortunately Shen Yizi was still sleeping, so she could only wait outside. The longer I waited, the more anxious I became. I wanted to rush in several times, but I endured it. Shen Yizi didn't get up until 3 o'clock in the morning. There was only one bed in the dormitory, and the couch was not spacious enough, so Shen Yizi slept on the same bed as Goosewitting these days. Anyway, he was unconscious and couldn't do anything to her. Because of these days of massage, Goosewitting's muscles have become plump and feel pretty good to the touch. He couldn't move or speak, but he was very good looking. Shen Yi unknowingly regarded him as a real doll and used him as a pillow when sleeping. So Shen Yizi was not surprised at all when he woke up and found himself lying on top of him. He also poked his face and said to him, "Good morning." Of course Goosewitting couldn't answer her, but Xuanu's voice sounded from the side. Shen Yizi took it over and rubbed it, then lazily stood up. When she learned that Mi Yang had come early in the morning, she felt a little sorry. "Kui Kui, why didn't you wake me up?" Quickui helped her comb her hair. "My dear, you slept well. Why did I wake you up? If your concubine is willing to wait, just let her wait." Shen Yizi, actually she thinks so too. After washing and dressing up, Shen Yizi came to the outside and said to Mi Yang without any sincerity, "Excuse me for waiting." Mi Yang's heart boiled with murderous intent, but a smile appeared on her face. "What did the princess say?" "It's because I came early." Shen Yizi nodded. "You don't have to come so early to greet me in the future. The rules here are not that strict. Mi Yang, who is here to say hello to you?" Shen Yizi sat down at the dinner table. "You haven't eaten yet? Come and have something with me." Mi Yang sat down and ate without knowing the taste. Shen Yizi had a good appetite and ate a lot, and even fed Xuanu from time to time. After dinner, Mi Yang proposed to go in and serve the prince. Just when Shen Yizi was about to respond, Xuanu started barking at Mi Yang again, ready to pounce on her and bite her to death if she dared to step into the inner room. The scene became awkward for a moment. "Xuanu, be good, let's go for a walk outside to eat." "Okay." Shen Yizi picked up Xuanu and walked outside. Xuanu jumped down from her arms, ran in front of Mi Yang and blocked her. Mi Yang obviously saw it, but she pretended not to see it and stepped towards it. If Xuanu hadn't been able to hide quickly, he might not have been trampled to death directly. "Xuanu," Shen Yizi rushed over and picked it up. "Are you okay?" Xuanu's head drooped and lay limply in her hand. Mi Yang said apologetically, I didn't mean it." Xuanu suddenly ran in front of me, and I couldn't stop myself. "That's enough." Shen Yizi stood up. "Concubine, please go out. From now on, concubine no longer has to come to the main courtyard without my permission." Mi Yang narrowed her eyes and stopped pretending. "I am the prince's concubine, why doesn't the prince let me come to visit the prince?" Shen Yizi said calmly, "You also said that I am the princess. Do you, a concubine, have any room to comment on what I said?" Mi Yang's behavior of stepping directly towards Xuanu just now completely angered her. She said something nice and didn't stop for a moment, but she clearly did it on purpose. No wonder Xuanyu is so hostile to her. Just because Xuanyu stops her once, she can directly kill it. She would not dare to let such a person into her yard again. Mi Yang almost laughed angrily when she saw Shen Yizi's condescending and disdainful look. Her nails dug deeply into her palms, suppressing her anger. After staring at Shen Yizi for a while, Mei Yang smiled instead. The princess cherishes this puppy so much, so she must take good care of it. After saying that, she turned and left. Shen Yizi stared at her back. What did Xiao Lizu mean? Is it possible that she is still waiting for an opportunity to attack Xuanyu? Because of these words, Shen Yizi worried for a few days, and ordered people to keep an eye on Xuanyu at all times, staring at Xiao Lizu, but he never saw any movement from her, and he couldn't help but feel that he was overthinking. The weather is getting hotter and hotter, and people are getting sleepy more easily. After lunch, Shen Yizi took Xuanyu for a walk to eat, then lay down on the couch. Just when one person and the dog were sleeping, a green bamboo leaf crawled out from the corner and quickly approached Shen Yizi. The moment the crisis came, Shen Yizi seemed to be aware of it. He suddenly woke up and saw a green shadow flashing in front of his eyes. Looking closely, it turned out to be a green bamboo leaf. Seeing Zhu Yeking attacking her, Shen Yizi was so frightened that he froze on the spot and did not dare to move. At the critical moment, Xuanyu rushed over and pinned Zhu Yeking to the ground. Zhu Yeking took the opportunity to entangle it and bit it on the leg, injecting venom into its body. Xuanyu, Shen Yizi screamed. At this time, he could not care about his fear of snakes. He grabbed the snake with his bare hands and threw it away. Quickui, who was guarding the door, heard the movement and ran in quickly. "Mother, what's wrong?" Shen Yizi knelt down in front of Xuanyu, looking at it falling down helplessly, feeling extremely panicked. "Quick, go get the doctor, Xuanyu has been bitten by a snake." "Snake?" Quickui was startled. She looked around the room and saw a green snake crawling away from the window. She was so frightened that she ran out quickly. While asking someone to catch the snake, she also sent for a doctor. Seeing that Xuanyu's aura was getting weaker and weaker, Shen Yizi tried to put spiritual power into it, but it was of no use, and the spiritual power could not stop the spread of poison. When the doctor arrived, Xuanyu had already died. Shen Yizi held its body, knelt on the ground, and cried inconspicuously. No one in the room noticed that Gu Switting, who was lying on the bed, moved his fingers and showed signs of waking up. Zhu Yeking returned to Mi Yang. Snake Xinzi hesitated, as if reporting something to her. Mi Yang stroked it gently with her fingers. "Good job." However, the next second, she strangled Zhu Yeking to death. He casually threw its body on the ground and said to the maid, "Bury it." After crying once, Shen Yizi had to accept the fact that Xuanyu was dead. She put Snow Slave into the small basket where it lived before, and carrying the basket and a flower hoe, she came to the garden. She wanted to find a beautiful feng shui land and bury Xuanyu. Quickui wanted to help her, but she refused. Can only follow behind worriedly. Shen Yizi was digging a hole when Mi Yang came over and said, "What is the princess doing? Is she trying to imitate the elegant way of burying flowers?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 596. Shen Yizi turned a deaf ear to Mi Yang's words and focused on digging holes. Quickui glared at her. Mi Yang glanced at her. If she had been outside, she would have dug out the little maid's eyes, but here, she didn't have to be angry with the dummy. She smiled innocently, took 2 steps closer, looked at Xuanyu in the basket, and covered her mouth in pretending to be surprised. "Ah, what happened to Xuanyu? Haven't you seen that their wives are so sad that they don't want to talk?" She insists on getting close to her. This concubine is really annoying. Quickui snorted coldly, concubine, don't ask questions knowingly here. We, the concubine, don't have time to talk to you now. You should just stay where you are. Before he finished speaking, he was slapped the face. Mi Yang squeezed the hand that slapped her and said, when I'm talking to the princess, how can it be your little maid's turn to interrupt? A dummy dared to provoke her several times. Did he really think she had lost her temper? She thought there was no need to argue with a dummy before, but now, she changed her mind again. I wonder what Shen Yizi's expression would be if this arrogant maid was sent underground to keep company with that dead dog. Mi Yang glanced at Quickui, smiled, and turned to leave. For some reason, Quickui felt chilled in her heart for no reason when she looked at her smile, and she didn't even dare to look at her anymore. Mi Yang walked directly into the main courtyard. This time, no one stopped her, and she came to the bed unobstructed. Mi Yang looked at Gu Switting, her heart filled with joy. This was the first time she was so close to him. He looks very similar to that person, as if they were carved from the same mold. She couldn't help but reach out her hand and touch his face. However, before they touched her, her wrist was grabbed by a strong force, as if her wrist was about to be crushed. Mi Yang was startled when she saw Gu Switting suddenly opened his eyes like cold stars, looking at her coldly. In the garden, with tears in his eyes, Shen Yizi put Xuanyu into the dug hole and filled it with soil bit by bit. The tears were like beads with broken strings, smashed into the soil one by one, and soaked in. Quickui knelt down next to her and gently wiped away her tears. Empress, Xuanyu definitely doesn't want to see you so sad. Kui, please go back first. I want to stay here alone for a while. Shen Yizi sat down directly on the grass, hugged his knees with his hands, rested his chin on his knees, and stared blankly at the little boy who buried Xuanyu. Grave bag. In total, the time she spent with Xuanyu was only a month. However, Xuanyu is very spiritual, as if she can understand her words. She always has the illusion that she has raised a child, and she can't help but put too much emotion into it. Especially because he died saving her. When its little body became stiff and cold in her hands, her heart also became cold, and she felt indescribably sad. She really would rather Xuanyu not be so spiritually protective. After all, she has a treasure in her body. Even if bamboo leaf green bites her, she will not die so quickly. But Xuanyu is different. It is so small that it cannot bear it at all. The more Shen Yizi thought about it, the more tears became uncontrollable. Quickui looked at her sad master, sighed, and was going to get an umbrella to cover her. Otherwise, how could the master bear it if the sun continued to shine like this? When he turned around and saw the person walking slowly towards him, he was shocked and speechless. Isn't that the prince? How did he wake up? The prince wakes up, then their princesses don't have to be living widows. Quickui was very excited and wanted to tell the princess the good news. Gu Switting had already walked over and waved to her, go down. Princess, I'm here. Quickui suppressed her excitement and quietly retreated. After walking a certain distance, I couldn't help but look back and saw the prince sitting down next to the princess and taking her into his arms. Quickui. The prince came to see the princess as soon as he woke up, and now he treats the princess like this when they meet. It seems that the prince likes their queen. As a person close to Shen Yizi, Quickui couldn't help but be happy for her. Zhizi after Gu Switting sat down next to Shen Yizi, he put his arm around her shoulders and called her softly. Shen Yizi looked up in surprise and saw Gu Switting alive in front of him. He was so shocked that he even forgot to cry. You. As soon as Gu Switting saw her, he felt that the empty place in his heart had been filled. Seeing that her eyes were red from crying, his heart clenched and he gently wiped her tears with his fingertips. It's me, I woke up. A person who had been in a coma for 3 years just woke up like this? Shenyazi felt a bit fantasy and couldn't react at the moment. Gu Swiding hugged her from behind, resting his head on her shoulder, and the two of them were close together without any gap. This was the first time that Shenyazi was so close to a man. Although this man was her nominal husband, she should have felt uncomfortable, but for some reason, being held in his arms like this, she did not reject it at all, but felt extremely comfortable and peaceful. It's really strange. How could Gu Swiding not be the same? Before this, he had never even touched a woman's hand, let alone such an intimate hug. But for Shenyazi, he only had the desire to get close to her. Not just a hug, he also wanted to kiss her, and even, do more intimate things. This was the first time the two of them had met, so he couldn't act too much, so he could only suppress the desire in his heart and tell himself not to rush and take his time. The most important thing now is to tell her that Xuanyu is not dead. Mi Yang returned to her yard, sent all her servants out, and locked herself in the house. After sitting on the couch in silence for a long time, she finally spoke, "Little plate, don't you have anything to say to me?" Samsara Pan's voice has no fluctuation, like a robot with no emotion. "What did you say?" Mi Yang took a deep breath. How could Gu Swiding wake up? This is all thanks to you. During Gu Swiding's coma, his soul actually left his body. His soul was possessed by the dog named Xuanyu. You let the poisonous snake bite it to death, and Xuanyu died. Gu Swiding's soul was able to escape and return to his body, and he naturally woke up. Why didn't you tell me before? Mi Yang roared crazily in her heart. She simply suspected that this reincarnation disc was deliberately against her. She was obviously its owner, but in the experience world, it always favored Shenyazi. What she asked was that Gu Swiding be unconscious but remain conscious. In this case, shouldn't Gu Swiding just lie on the bed and wait for her to attack? How could a soul end up in a dog? That dog is still being raised by Shenyazi like a treasure. It's strange that Gu Swiding doesn't favor her. Once the experience world begins, I can't interfere too much, Samsara Pan said. Mi Yang was so angry that she vomited blood. This broken plate, she smashed it when she got out. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 597. The reincarnation disc sensed her thoughts and said in a calm voice, I am an innate artifact, you cannot break me. Mi Yang. This broken plate must be just to make her angry. Now that Gu Swiding has successfully met with Shenyazi, coupled with what she did before, she is afraid that she will fail again this time. But perhaps because she was used to it, Mi Yang was not in a hurry to end it. 3 consecutive failures were enough for her to understand the difficulty of the task. She underestimated the enemy before. Relying on her own memory, she thought that conquering Gu Swiding would be a very simple matter, but the reality gave her a loud slap in the face. Next, she had to adjust her strategy. The world has failed. Mi Yang no longer tried to capture Gu Swiding, but instead kept a low profile and became an invisible person in Prince Chen's palace. But in fact, not a day went by without her collecting information about Gu Swiding and Shenyazi and analyzing them from all aspects. Only by knowing yourself and the enemy can you be victorious in every battle. She didn't know much about the two of them before, so it was really not a wise move to act rashly. In this life, Mi Yang has studied the two of them thoroughly. Next time, she is confident that she can definitely take down Gu Swiding. This time, we will make Shenyazi and Gu Swiding brothers and sisters. I am Gu Swiding's wife. Reincarnation disc. Gu Swiding subconsciously only accepts Shenyazi as her wife. If it is enforced, this world will not be able to be built. Mi Yang, okay, then the fiancé. Fiancés are also not allowed. Am I your master or Gu Swiding? This doesn't work, that doesn't work. Forget it, let's just be childhood sweethearts. The conditions are set and the new trial world is being generated. The generation is over. I wish everything goes well. Mi Yang opened her eyes and found herself sitting in front of a desk with a book in front of her. The words on it and the words she recognized were all missing strokes. What's going on in this world? Samsarapan gave her a brief introduction. Mi Yang knew what was going on. Are all the things in these experience worlds created by you out of thin air? Constructing one world after another that is so real that no one can doubt it. The power of the reincarnation disc is truly incredible, and it is worthy of being an artifact. Thanks to the fact that she is a demon and born with weak emotions, she did not get lost in one world after another. Reincarnation disc, it is not created out of thin air, but is constructed based on the memory and cognition of the person who is pulled in. Memory and cognition. Mi Yang's heart trembled. She had no knowledge of these worlds. Could it be that Gu Switting and Shen Yazi had reached similar worlds before? Zuzu, come down for a moment, a woman's voice came from below. Mi Yang had already entered the role and knew that Zuzu was calling her, so she went downstairs. In the kitchen, a woman in her 40s was busy. This woman was the mother in Mi Yang's world. No, mother. Mom, what's wrong? Cao Huican brought out a white porcelain vat, filled with chubby dumplings, and the fragrant hot steam came out. Send this bowl of dumplings to the next door. Mi Yang agreed, carrying dumplings to the next door, and knocked on the door. After a while, a tall figure appeared in front of him, with short hair that looked a bit harsh and handsome and profound facial features. Who else could it be if it wasn't Gu Switting? Although her temperament has changed a lot and her face is a little more childish, her mold has not changed and she can recognize him at a glance. Mi Yang smiled sweetly at him. Brother Xueting, my family made dumplings today, and my mother asked me to bring a bowl over. Gu Switting looked at the bowl of dumplings and did not refuse. Wait a moment. Not long after entering, he came out with a clean enamel bowl. As he handed the bowl over, he whispered, "Thank you to my aunt for me." Over the years, the Xiao family next door helped his family a lot, and he silently remembered it in his heart. Mi Yang waved her hand. Brother Xueting, we have been neighbors for many years, why are you so polite? I have often come to your house for dinner in the past. She took the bowl and returned home briskly. Where no one saw her, she showed an evil smile. This time, the start was much better than the previous ones. Asterisk. It was cold beneath me. My head hurts. This was Shen Yazi's first feeling after regaining consciousness. Wasn't she killed by a huge thunder falling from the sky? Is this a corpse fraud now? Shen Yazi blinked and everything in front of him became clear. The exposed cement floor, old-fashioned light bulbs, bright red painted cabinets, and the tram bed with period characteristics. Who I am? Where am I? At the same time as he had doubts, a large wave of information suddenly flooded into his mind. Shen Yazi shook his head feebly, but he still couldn't stop the swelling pain. After she finally digested the information, she had an empty face and didn't know what expression to show. She slipped into a book and entered an ancient tyrant's novel that she had read before. The billionaire wife, the domineering president begs to be let go. This book tells the story of the relationship between the tyrant hero and Cinderella heroine. A long-distance love story that goes back and forth 1,000 times. Although it was boring, she continued reading because she had nothing to do. After reading it, she forgot many plots, not even the name of the heroine, but she remembered one thing very clearly. The background of the novel was an imaginary modern society that took place in 2009. But now, what she is wearing is far before the story begins, the 1980s. Shen Yazi. Please let her die again, thank you. After calming down, Shen Yazi began to sort out the information in his mind. Although it was worn a little early, the original owner is not a nameless cannon fodder, but a very important female supporting role. The male protagonist's sister Gu Tang, who controls heaven and earth and ends up trying to kill herself. This master sabotaged the love affair between the male and female protagonist many times, and finally destroyed the last trace of the male protagonist's affection for her. He cruelly sent her abroad and no longer cared about her. Later, she became addicted to drugs for no apparent reason. Eventually, she died of drug addiction at home and was taken away by God. Gu Tang has 4 brothers, the eldest brother Gu Tianlin and the second brother Gu Switting. They are twins and are 18 years old this year. The third brother, Gu Tianxing, is 16 years old and currently in the first grade of high school. The fourth brother, Gu Tiankai, is the male protagonist of the novel. In the book, the overbearing CEO male protagonist who dominates the shopping mall and controls the lifeline of the southern economy is still just a 5-year-old little boy. And the original owner is still only a 10-year-old girl, but her character of making heaven and earth has already begun to take shape. Since she is the only girl in the family, she has been pampered by her parents and her 3 older brothers. Her temperament has been raised to be coquettish and willful, and she must get what she wants. Even though her father and mother died one after another, her temper did not restrain much. After all, her 3 brothers continued to dote on her. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 598. No 2 days ago, Qin Lulu, the monitor of the school, wore a new skirt and showed it off to her. She was jealous and jealous. When she got home, she clamored for her elder brother to buy her one too. Disregarding the huge debt still owed by the family, he turned a blind eye to his eldest brother's broken leg and just cried willfully. After being rejected, he locked himself in the room out of anger and refused to eat. As a result, I was so weak from hunger that when I got out of bed, I accidentally knocked on the bedside table and lost my life. That's when she arrived. Shen Yizi has no say in this matter. Her body was so uncomfortable that she couldn't even stand up. She felt it and the Xianlingzi came with her. Shen Yizi felt happy in his heart. He climbed to the window, bathed in the warm sunshine that came in, and opened his mouth. An ice blue bead the size of a lotus seed floated out of her mouth, stopped in mid-air, and began to perform photosynthesis, converting sunlight into a spiritual energy-like substance and inputting it into her body. She accidentally picked up the Xianling pearl in her previous life. It is similar to an energy converter. It can convert not only sunlight, but also moonlight. She suspected that it was accidentally lost by aliens. In her previous life, with the help of Xianlingzi, all aspects of her body were greatly improved. She felt that in addition to improving physical fitness, it should have other functions. Unfortunately, before she could explore it, she was struck into the world by a bolt of lightning. But let's make peace with it. In her previous life, she was an orphan. After being adopted by an old Taoist priest, she followed him around to deceive and abduct her. No, she was willing to do good and make good friends. Later, the old Taoist priest left, and she lived alone in the world without joy. If it weren't for the Xianlingzi as a companion, she might not have been able to hold on for long. Although the conditions are a little worse now and the material is a little scarce, at least she has 4 more brothers and a handful of youth. Speaking of which, she has made a profit. Absorbing a wave of sun essence, Shen Yizi's originally weak body finally regained some vitality and gained strength. She got up and walked to the wardrobe that was as tall as a person, wanting to see what the body looked like. The large diamond-shaped mirror inlaid on the cabinet door reflected her face. That is a childish but stunning face. Her facial features are very delicate, with a pair of round and moist cat eyes. The upturned eyes are lined with eyeliner. She is delicate and quiet, and her eyelashes are long and curled. When she blinks lightly, there seems to be a layer of sparkling light spreading in her eyes. The nose and mouth are small, the lips are light pink, and the face is a little pale due to malnutrition. The malnutrition was purely caused by Gu Tang herself, because she was very picky about food and would not eat this or that. As a result, she became as thin as a paper doll, with the veins on her neck and wrists visibly bulging. But apart from being thin and pale, there are almost no other flaws. Well, she decided that she must feed this body until it is white and tender. Bah, bang, bang. There was a rude knock on the door suddenly, showing obvious impatience. Gu Tang, come out to eat. The second brother of the original owner, Gu Switting. A face instantly appeared in Shen Yizi's mind. She walked over and opened the door, but her eyes only reached the other person's chest. Slowly moving up, the moment she saw his face, Shen Yizi felt as if he had been stabbed by a ray of bright light. The first impression this second brother gives people is that he is sharp and ferocious, because he has a very short hair and his hair is very hard, like sharp thorns standing up. But if you look closely, you will see that he is really well born, with thick sword-shaped eyebrows, phoenix-like eyes, and a tall and straight figure, at least 185 centimeters or above, which makes it very difficult for her to look at him. When Gu Switting saw her coming out, he turned around and left, but suddenly stopped, staring at the blood on her shoulder like a hawk. How did you do it? Shen Yizi looked over and saw that the blood was obviously shed when his head was smashed. Just as she was about to excuse him, Gu Switting pulled her over and shot her from head to toe, finally landing on her head. Looking at her with heavy and cold eyes. Gu Tang, you broke your head just because of a dress. Shen Yizi wanted to retort, but was stuck again. What could she say? This is all the blame left by the original owner, and she has to bear it if she doesn't want to. Gu Switting was too lazy to listen to her excuses, so he pulled her into his room and pushed her on the bed. Sit tight for me. Gu Switting took out the bruise and bruise ointment from the cabinet and applied it on her roughly. After applying it, he stared at her wound nervously. With such a big hole, just applying the medicine wouldn't be enough. What if she got tetanus? But how can the family find spare money to treat her? Does it hurt? Shen Yizi said honestly, it hurts. She almost fainted from the pain when she first woke up. Gu Switting poked her in the forehead angrily, it hurts and it hurts. Why didn't I kill you? Go put on a coat and I'll take you to the hospital. If it doesn't work out, ask Mingzi and the others to borrow some. Hearing his obvious concern but unforgiving words, Shen Yizi felt warm in his heart and shook his head. Second brother, I don't need to go to the hospital. This injury will be cured in a few days. Gu Switting stood up and stared at her condescendingly, fiercely, and coldly. Are you going or not? Shen Yizi shrank, but this was the reaction of the original body. In this family, the original owner can be unscrupulous towards the eldest brother and bully the younger brother, but he does not dare to be arrogant in front of the second brother, and is even a little afraid of him. But she still held firm, I won't go. Okay, don't cry if anything happens. Then Gu Switting strode out. Shen Yizi grinned and followed. The Gu family lives in a two-story building with 3 rooms upstairs, a small living room, and a balcony. Shen Yizi and his second and third brothers all live upstairs. The master bedroom downstairs was originally occupied by Gu's father and mother. Now the room is locked and contains some of their belongings. When lying on the side, the eldest brother and the younger brother live together. After going downstairs, Shen Yizi scanned around. The fairly spacious living room was empty. There was a cabinet against the wall, with the portraits of Gu's father and mother on it. I used photos of them when they were young, with handsome men and beautiful women. There is a dining table in the middle, a few chairs, and nothing else. The big items that were originally placed in the living room, such as the TV, radio, and sofa, were all sold. In order to pay off debts. 5 years ago, Gu's mother died in childbirth while giving birth to her little brother. As a result, Gu's father was devastated and decadent for 2 years. Later, his good brother Wang Jianwen couldn't bear it anymore and slapped him awake. Unfortunately, not long after Gu's father cheered up, he and his car fell into the water while transporting goods. Not only were the people missing, but all the goods in the car were lost. The cargo owners paid a deposit in advance, but then failed to receive the goods, so they naturally came to ask for debts. The elder brother Gu and the second brother Gu were only 15 years old at the time. How could they stop those aggressive creditors? It was Grandma Chandaya who came with her family and threatened those people with death, otherwise the children of the Gu family would have to be eaten alive. Coupled with Wang Jianwen's mediation and assuming part of the debt for the Gu family, those people stopped and agreed to a 3-year reprieve. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 599. In the past 3 years, Brother Gu and Brother Gu have been trying every means to pay back the money. But I haven't been able to pay it off yet. The reason why Brother Gu broke his leg this time was because he heard that he could get a lot of money by joining a film crew. It happened that a film crew came to the city to film a film, so he went to recommend himself. He was easily chosen because of his outstanding appearance. Unexpectedly, before the filming was completed, something went wrong and he fell from a height. The crew sent the person back, paid a small amount of medical expenses and left it alone. And the family couldn't come up with any money, so the eldest brother could only lie in bed and endure it. But the original owner was still selfish and willful to make trouble with him. Shen Yizi recalled these things and couldn't help but feel sorry for his brothers. When he came to the table and looked at the bowl of dumplings in front of him, Shen Yizi was very surprised. Logically speaking, this family could hardly afford to eat, so how could they make dumplings? Second brother, are we making dumplings today? Gu Switting sneered coldly, the ant next door sent it? I see. The Gu family has had a good relationship with the Xiao family next door for many years. If the family cooks something delicious, they will send it to each other. During the 3 years since the death of Gu's father and Gu's mother, the Xiao family has taken care of several children of the Gu family. Shen Yizi was about to pick up chopsticks and start eating when he noticed that his younger brother Gu Tiankai on his left was looking longingly at the dumplings in front of him. She suddenly remembered that it was not easy to eat a meal of dumplings in this era, let alone a very poor family like the Gu family. The brothers of the Gu family have always loved Gu Tang, their younger sister. Whenever there is something delicious at home, they all follow her. Even the youngest brother has to step aside. Looking at the other people on the table, they all had only a bowl of porridge in front of them, and there were only 2 simple side dishes on the table, fried eggplant and green pepper, and sour cowpeas. The only thing in front of her was a bowl of fragrant dumplings. How can she eat this dumpling? Shen Yizi went to the kitchen to get a plate and put the dumplings in. There are so many that I can't finish, so you guys can eat too. He also gave one to Gu Tiankai, put it into his bowl, and smiled at him. Gu Tiankai looked at her with wide eyes in surprise, as if he was meeting the sister for the first time. Shen Yizi's expression paused. It's not good to overdo it on the first day. Take your time. Gu Switting glanced at her thoughtfully, picked up the bowl and drank the porridge in large gulps without touching the dumplings. Shen Yizi took a piece of eggplant and put it into his mouth. When he bit it, it had a crispy texture. The green pepper was not spicy at all, but had a hint of sweetness. Shen Yizi's eyes lit up instantly. She didn't expect that a simple dish of fried eggplant and green pepper could be so delicious. At this time, she couldn't help but think of what the old man often said, children today are so happy that they have never eaten anything good. Shen Yizi, isn't this logic a bit wrong? How can you be happy if you haven't eaten anything good? If you have never eaten good food, you naturally don't know how bad the food they are eating now is. If there is no comparison, there will be no harm. Isn't this happiness? Shenyazi, what you said makes sense, but I am speechless. But actually she couldn't understand it very much. How come those delicacies carefully prepared by famous chefs taste like pig food in the old man's mouth? The old man explained to her, whether a dish is delicious or not, cooking techniques and seasonings are secondary. The most important thing is the ingredients themselves. Good ingredients, even if they are just stir-fried with a little oil and salt, can be beautiful. Damn it! And what are we eating now? Pigs fed with feed, chickens kept in cages, vegetables grown with poisonous pesticides from wastelands. Can the food be eaten? It's just enough to fill the stomach. Now eating this fried eggplant and green pepper dish, Shenyazi realized how reasonable the old man's words were. She feels that there are more benefits to coming here, as she can enjoy a variety of pollution-free, natural, and delicious ingredients. After dinner, Shenyazi originally wanted to wash the bowl, but Goose Whitting snatched it away and refused to let her touch it. Shenyazi couldn't help but want to sigh. The original owner was already 10 years old, and the girl who was only 11 years old could do most of the labor in many families. However, her brothers at home didn't even let her wash the dishes. He truly doted on her and turned her into a charming girl who never touched the charm of beauty. No wonder she developed a character that does not know pain and only wants to take. Since she is not allowed to wash the dishes, she should go see her elder brother. Gu Tianlin was sitting on the bed with his back on the pillow, a small table in front of him, and he was writing something at his desk. Hearing the footsteps, he raised his head and smiled when he saw her. "Tang Tang, have you eaten?" Shenyazi looked at him and replied blankly, "I ate it, brother." Although I know from my memory that this eldest brother is very well born, only when I actually see him do I realize how impactful this face is. The eyebrows and eyes are like a mountain ink painting, and the temperament is like clear sapphire. One eye is stunning, two eyes are soothing, and three eyes, I still want to see it. When he smiled at her just now, there were slight dimples on his cheeks. What a warm and gentle young man. Even though his leg was so seriously injured and he had no money for treatment, and he might be disabled for the rest of his life, he was still able to smile so brightly. Shenyazi felt even more distressed. My eyes couldn't help but be filled with mist. Gu Tianlin panicked when he saw him. "What's wrong with Tang Tang? Is your second brother bullying you again?" Shenyazi hurriedly walked over and comforted him. "No, eldest brother, second brother didn't bully me. I just felt that I was too ignorant before." Gu Tianlin held her shoulders and wiped her tears with his fingers. "It's my fault that you don't have a new skirt to wear. Don't worry, I will buy you a skirt when the royalties come down, okay?" Shenyazi shook his head and said with a nasal voice, "No, I'll keep the money for you to treat your leg, brother, and also pay off the family's debt. I don't want a skirt." She was so sensible, which made Gu Tianlin feel even more indebted. He held her in his arms, patted her thin shoulders, and touched her rugged and protruding spine. He felt a sense of sourness in his heart. If her parents were still alive, Tang Tang would have lived like a little princess. How could she be like now, unable to even afford a new dress? Shenyazi was held in his arms and naturally smelled the fresh breath on his body. Thinking that she is actually much older than him, and now being treated like a little girl by him, she is really embarrassed. "Stand up and withdraw from his arms." There is a stack of light yellow checked paper on the table, which is filled with rows of clear and handsome fonts. Shenyazi read 2 lines and found that it turned out to be a plot. Thinking of the royalties he just mentioned, she couldn't help blurting out, "Brother, are you writing a novel?" Gu Tianlin said, "When this manuscript is completed, my eldest brother will get 180 yuan. What kind of skirt do you want to buy then?" Adorable baby, the miracle doctor is so awesome. Author, 955. Chapter 600. Shenyazi was surprised when he heard the amount of the manuscript fee. Then he thought that this was 1986, and the salary of most employees was only a few dozen yuan. This 180 yuan was almost equivalent to 3 months' salary. Brother is so awesome. Brother, I really don't want a skirt. If you keep saying that, I will get angry. Shen Yizi used a unique trick. Even according to the appearance in the memory, the mouth was curled up as if it could hang an oil bottle. Gu Tianlin could sense that she was not really angry, and scraped her nose affectionately. Okay, brother, I won't say anything anymore. Being treated like this by such a gentle and handsome young man, Shen Yizi couldn't help but blush even though he had the heart of an old ant. Brother, have a good rest, I'm going to do my homework. Shen Yizi left a few words in a hurry, turned around and ran out. Turning the corner, she suddenly saw Gu Switting leaning on the stairs with her arms folded, and she almost screamed in fright. Second brother, what are you doing here? Gu Switting put down his arms and walked over, lowering his voice and saying, Gu Tang, are you playing another trick? Let me tell you, I am not as easily deceived by you as my elder brother. He heard what she and her eldest brother said just now. Gu Tang grew up under his eyes, and he knew better than she herself what kind of person she was. Earlier, I was worried about life and death because of a dress. Why did I change my mind so quickly now? When something goes wrong, there must be a monster. He felt that she must be causing trouble again. Shen Yizi looked at him without saying anything. Just when Gu Switting thought she had guessed correctly, she suddenly smiled brightly. Then second brother, you might as well take a look and see what kind of crooked idea I'm making. After saying that, I ignored him and ran upstairs. Gu Switting turned around and looked at her brisk back, feeling puzzled. Entering the room, Shen Yizi took out the original owner's homework. In the past 2 days, the original owner has only been thinking about going on a hunger strike to force his eldest brother, but his homework has not been done at all. Now that she has taken over this body, she has naturally inherited her identity as a student and her obligation to study hard and make progress every day. The original owner is currently in 5th grade, and the subjects he studies include but are not limited to mathematics, Chinese, ideological and moral character, nature, geography, history, calligraphy, drawing red molds, music, abacus, and labor. However, except for mathematics and Chinese, other courses are not within the scope of the examination. Assignments are also from these 2 subjects. Shen Yizi opened the Chinese textbook and planned to familiarize herself with it first. To her surprise, there were several texts in it that lasted until she was in elementary school. There are also those familiar ancient poems. This is a medium-sized Chinese language book, and I finished it in less than half an hour. Looking at the homework, it is simply easy for her. Shen Yizi holds the pen and writes as if he is conscious. He brushes and finishes the work in a few strokes. For the first time, she discovered that doing homework can be so enjoyable. I feel a little bit in love with this feeling. Mathematics is even simpler. In less than an hour, she finished all the homework. Shen Yizi stretched and went downstairs to the bathroom to wash up. This small building was originally built by Gu's father after he bought the foundation. A bathroom has been specially separated for easy access to the toilet, so as not to be woken up by urine at night and have to run to the public toilet dozens of meters away. Isn't this up? After Shen Yizi washed up, he went upstairs to his room, climbed into bed, and began to bathe in the moonlight. She sat cross-legged on the bed, facing the window, opened her mouth and spit out the Xianlingzhu. With each breath, the Xianlingzhu absorbed the moonlight and transformed it into a gentle force that traveled within her body. During this process, Shen Yizi felt that his 6 sense organs were quiet, his body and mind were peaceful, and he felt indescribably comfortable. In the end, she seemed to no longer exist, but turned into a fish, swimming between heaven and earth. She also had this experience when she was cultivating with Xianlingzhu in her previous life. From the perspective of viewer, the world looks different. It's just that the world in this life is much cleaner than the previous one. There are no traces of black air that are invisible to the naked eye. This made her practice smoother, and the Xianling bead transformed her spiritual energy into much more energy in the same period of time than in her previous life. This night was spent practicing silently. She had used cultivation instead of sleeping a long time ago, because after practicing, her energy became fuller and her body was in a very full state. Sleeping has become her pastime when she is tired and tired occasionally. When the sun jumped out, the darkness receded, and the yin and yang intersected, the spiritual energy transformed into her by the Xianlingzi showed explosive growth. Shen Yizi's eyes opened, and a thrilling brilliance suddenly appeared in her eyes, and then disappeared immediately. Asterisk. Goosewitting grabbed her hair and went downstairs. She went into the bathroom to get a mouthwash cup and drank some water, then walked outside. The bathroom is too small. When he enters it, he feels that the whole space is cramped, so he never likes to wash in it. They all got water and went outside the yard, stood in front of the ditch in front of the gate, and brushed their teeth happily. After brushing his teeth, there was often less than half a glass of water left in the cup. He would simply pour it into his hand, wipe it on his face, and wash it all together. It's just that today he always feels that something is wrong. When I first came out, someone seemed to be in the kitchen. Goosewitting spat out the water in his mouth with a pop. He didn't bother to wash his face and came to the kitchen with a mouthful of foam. Seeing Shen Yizi busy inside, he almost suspected that he was not awake. You. Shen Yizi was about to take a bucket of water and go out to pour it out. When he saw him holding it at the door, he simply put the bucket in front of him and said, "Second brother, help me pour it out." Make the call confident and confident. Goosewitting lifted the bucket with one hand, walked to the door easily, and poured the water into the ditch. "Second brother, the meal is almost ready. Go and ask the third brother and the fourth child to get up. Don't disturb the elder brother. He is injured now and uses his brain to write articles all day long. He needs to sleep more." Goosewitting smelled the aroma of porridge and coriander coming from the kitchen and felt that something was wrong with Gu Tang today. He went into the bathroom and washed his face. When he came out, there were still drops of water on his angular face. Especially the two thick black sword eyebrows, with small crystal water drops dotted on them, like small diamonds. When Gu Tianxing came out, Shen Yizi was setting out the dishes. She said hello to him, "Third brother." The sound is crisp and watery, like ice cream in summer. Gu Tianxing looked up at her in surprise. When he raised his head, Shen Yizi couldn't help but marvel in his heart. This third brother was indeed a member of their family, and his appearance was also outstanding. Yesterday, he had his head lowered all the time, and the bangs on his forehead were so long that they covered his eyes. Only his straight nose and delicate chin were exposed, and his skin was too white. Now she could finally see his whole face. She has a delicate and small face with oval seeds, and a pair of indifferent and clear amber eyes under the bangs. Coupled with a slender figure and fair skin, if you put on a long wig and put on a skirt, you will be a real cross-dressing boss. You don't even need to put on makeup.